to welcome you to the Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee for November. Today's November 22nd. It's 1:30. And we have Dan Klein in the chambers, Amanda Champion and Deborah Dawson on Zoom, and Dave McKenna on Zoom. And then we have several other people here, including Barbara Ekstrom. And so I'll call the meeting to order. Do we have anybody for public comment, Brittany?
We do not.
Okay. I don't know of any changes to the agenda, or is there anybody that wants to make any changes to our agenda today? Okay, moving right along. We're to item number 4 already. So we have the minutes for approval from October 25th. So thanks for writing those up, Brittany. Are there any suggested changes? Okay, so we'll do, well, we need somebody to move the minutes and second. Amanda and Deborah seconds. Thank you. And so we'll do a roll call vote. Dan?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's unanimous. For the chair's report, I was really just wanting to start looking at our goals, but I asked Brittany to put that down further down in the agenda, so we'll look at that later. I didn't really have anything else. Let's see, so we'll go to County Administrator's report. I see Amy's here. Is there anything that you'd like to report on?
I don't have a report for you today, Anne, so I'll give back some time to you all.
Excellent. We are way ahead of time now. Okay. Wow, we're 25 minutes ahead of time. We'll see if our planning department's ready to go. So next is our planning and sustainability departments. Is there any report before we get into the water quality strategy? Hi, Katie.
Hi there. No report from me either. I could try texting Darby though to see if she's ready. And I see Terry's on, so perhaps the agenda might be juggled to allow Terry to start with the 2030 district.
What do you think, Terry? Are you ready to go now? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So appreciate it.
We'll do that first, and then we'll hear from Darby on the water quality strategy. So Terry, I'll let you take it away. I have down here, you're going to do an update on the 2030 district. Yeah,
thank you. And apologies to those of you that saw this at F&I last week. It's the exact same thing. Essentially, what I'm here to talk to you about is the 2030 district, the Ithaca 2030 district. And I guess before I jump into it, can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the 2030 district is a voluntary collective of commercial buildings that have all come together to say we want to reduce our energy use by 50% by 2030. And there's a couple of interim goals. So 20% by last year, 2020, and then 35% by 2025. And those goals are district wide. So it's not requiring any building to do it. It's looking at the district as a whole. And so there's, I think, something like 23 odd districts across the country. Ithaca is one of them. We're actually the smallest district, and we have 32 member buildings, one of which the county has, and I'll get to that in a moment. And 6 of those members, some that have multiple buildings, have already met those 2030 reduction targets and are already helping contribute to the district as a collective reaching some energy reduction goals. And so the Ithaca 2030 district is currently looking for new members, looking for new buildings, and part of this is to increase that square footage. So right now they're at about 417,000 square feet, and I think they'd like to get to over 500,000 square feet. And so our own membership is we have one building currently within the 2030 district. That's COFA, the Human Services Annex building. And in addition to contributing this building as part of the district, we also serve on the steering committee. So Andrea Aguirre and then Darby, Kylie, and then myself have all been on the steering committee. We regularly attend the quarterly district meetings and try and contribute what we can. And they also give us access to this pretty cool property dashboard. And so this is what the dashboard itself looks like. It's a pretty cool tool that helps us look at our energy usage and compare it over time, so we can see how we did, all the way back to 2013, and see if we're meeting our goals, exceeding our goals, or not quite getting there quite yet. So it's a pretty useful tool to get, and it's open to any building that's part of the district. The other thing that it has is water consumption. And so we rely on the city of Ithaca giving them some water data. So that's why some of these later months are not showing as well right now. They've had some difficulty getting that data recently, but this is another cool metric that we're able to look at and see if we're meeting our water reduction targets as well. And so one of the reasons why we wanted to come and provide that update to you is because we've been approached by the 2030 district because they'd like to add another county building. And so we're looking at, not only increasing the square footage of the district overall, but also looking at how the district's going to meet its goals. And I think because the 2030 district has seen what the county's doing with the Green Facilities Capital Plan, they know that we're probably going to be one of those members that help contribute to reaching that 50% reduction. And they'd like to see us help out even more if possible. So we gave it a thought, and we were thinking about what building fit the best. And what we came down to was mental health right now is probably the best candidate. It's for a number of reasons. A lot of it has to do with the geographic scope of the district itself. It's mostly focused around downtown Ithaca. So that immediately takes out buildings like emergency response, the airport, public works. Some of our other downtown buildings are a little bit complicated. So, we're still trying to figure out exactly what the HVAC situation is going to look like at the Human Services building. So that's why we're a little tentative there. And then with the courthouse complex, that's a building that, we're looking at what services are going to be taken out of it. And also the meters, the actual NICEAG meters get very complicated. It's actually all chained together with the old jail and the Daniel D. Tompkins building. So that didn't make it a good candidate. So we're really looking at mental health is probably the best candidate, especially because in phase 1 of the capital plan, that's when a lot of the work is going to be done to mental health. So we're going to, be doing a lot of good work there that we can then share those lessons to other commercial buildings that are in the 2030 district. So it's providing that county leadership, which we like to see. And I think, the best part about this is it's not a huge burden on staff. A lot of the work is taken on by the 2030 district. We give them some access to our NICEAG data, and they're able to create the dashboard, basically from that. It doesn't really require anything else from us. So for us, we see a lot of positives to doing this and not really any drawbacks. So we took a look at the resolution that enabled the 2030 district, and we feel comfortable that we're able to add another building. And as long as there's no objections from Peak, we've already heard from F&I that there doesn't seem to be. Our hope is to add it to the district by the end of the year. So I'll stop there and answer any questions.
Thank you, Terry. So people, we can do a go around to say how people feel, but we could start with about how people feel about adding the mental health building, but we could also start with questions too, if people have them or comments. Thank you very much, Terry, for this. I hadn't known much about the I'd heard about the 2030 district, so it was helpful for me to hear the presentation twice. Deborah?
Yeah, thanks, Terry. It's good to see you, especially in this capacity. I am curious about one thing. I don't have any problem with mental health. If it's okay with Arel and F&I, it's certainly okay with me. I'm curious to know, though, given our plans to build a new green center of government, if we signed on the existing county buildings in and then built a new, much more efficient building, would that count as an energy reduction for the purposes of the 2030 district? I know that might sound like we're kind of cheating, but Anything we can do to help them out, why not?
Yeah, it's a good question. We did think about that a little bit. And before I get to that question, I should add, we did talk with Arel. We also talked with Frank and Harmony about it, and everyone's on board. There were no objections. I think you're right, Deborah. I think one of the difficulties is that the way the courthouse complex bill works with NYSEG is that it's all under 1 meter. So the courthouse itself, the old jail, and the legislative building where planning resides, they're all connected under one bill. And so if we were to say build a new building and move, some groups out of the old jail, some groups out of the legislative building, like planning, it would be really difficult to understand what that reduction was coming from and if it really even was a reduction, because we'd still have the majority of it coming from that courthouse building, and then we'd have another building on top of that. So we'd really be looking at kind of both of them together in that situation. So that was one of the reasons why we thought mental health was a little bit cleaner, just because it's going to be there now, and it's going to definitely probably be there in 2030. And it's also going to give us a great look at, okay, what did it look like beforehand and what did it look like after? And then enable us to really show those lessons to other people and use it as a case study.
Well, I'm curious, Terry, when we take all of the county employees out of the old courthouse, which is what the court system is pushing for, would it make sense, whether it's for the 2030 district or otherwise, to decouple the billing for that building from the county accounts, because it's not going to be ours anymore? I mean, that's just another question for another day, I guess.
Yeah, I think, probably a question for another day. It's something we can look into. You would think it would be easy to do that. It gets slightly more complicated with having to sub-meter and put in new meters and figure that out. But it's something that we can look into in the future for sure.
Well, it's NYSEG. Why should it be easy?
No.
Thanks, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Deborah. Martha?
Thanks very much. Appreciate this. And my understanding of the way the main courthouse works is we are responsible for maintenance and probably utilities. I'm not sure, but whether we have our staff in there or not. There's some decades ago where New York State agreed to take over paying for court staffing, but said that counties had to pay for the buildings they were in. So that certainly includes maintenance and repairs. I'm going to guess it probably includes the utilities too. So in a sense, when we build a new office building, we're actually adding square footage and adding energy load because we're going to be expanding the footprint of county employees. Is that true, Terry? That's kind of, to be honest, the way to look at it.
Yeah, I don't know what the agreement is with the courthouse system and how that works, and if we're responsible for maintenance or not. I do know we're responsible for the utility bills. We pay the utilities for the courthouse and everything that's adjoined to it and to that account. So, moving forward, I would suspect that would be the case, where we continue to be responsible for that, and then we would have this additional bill from whatever the building was created.
Okay, so the footprint of the district attorney and county clerk, instead of being wrapped within a bill that we're going to continue paying anyway, they're going to be in new space that's going to incur additional load. Let me ask, so what are you thinking about the mental health building? What kind of retrofit do you imagine?
Yeah, so phase 1 of the Green Capital Plan, Green Facilities Plan, has us replacing windows. I know that was one of the big things. Along with a lot of the other buildings, we're doing weatherization, lighting optimization, so looking at lighting controls, demand response. I think the big thing for that building is that we're also looking to get it off of natural gas. So we're putting in VRF heat pumps. There's already some heat pumps there, but it also has some natural gas. And so the plan is to take it off of natural gas and go fully to heat pumps. And so hopefully that'll be completed in phase 1, which is slated for 2022 and 2023. So that's another reason this makes it a good candidate.
That's great. That'll be a great model for other multi-story buildings that somebody may think is just intimidating to retrofit, but that sounds great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
And I saw, was it Amy that you put your camera back on? I didn't know if you wanted to add anything in there. No, I don't know if you know Amy or Katie, but it seems, as people said, we must be paying for their electricity since it's all in one bill, the three buildings.
Yeah, that's part of, I believe that's part of the agreement. We pay for all of those pieces. We have to maintain and keep up that space. So as Terry pointed out, we would be still responsible for that as we continue to look forward.
But if we want to measure the county employees' energy footprint, then once they're out of that building, I think there has to be some way to remove that building from our calculation.
Yeah, we could, I mean, it will still be under county. We still
Right.
have to maintain it and all of that, but we would say that we don't have as many county employees. It gets a little complicated with the court system, but yes.
And
I
just to
guess
jump in to clarify for everybody, the 2030 district is based on each building that you put into the portfolio. It's not by the entity that controls the buildings.
Right. I think they were just thinking about the county goals, but to me, if we own and operate that building, to me, that would be part of that's a county building. So I don't think we should ignore it and not think about making that building also energy efficient. What do you guys think from planning?
I mean, with the green facilities plan, I mean, the plan is still to do upgrades to that facility, so they would still be, I think it's phase 3 has them slated for a geothermal system, essentially, to try and get them off of natural gas. So it does incorporate those buildings. So the intent is still to continue to do infrastructure upgrades to make it more efficient. And, how we end up including it in our calculations when it comes to emissions and energy usage, I think we can look at different ways of doing it. A lot of it comes down to what protocol we're using and judging whether we're fiscally responsible or operationally responsible. And you can slice and dice it different ways. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's still a building that, is emitting. And so we want to try and reduce that if we can.
Thank you. Dan, Amanda, Dave, did you have any questions or comments in response to adding the mental health building to the 2030 district?
No, I think any building you can add to it is a good thing.
Yep, it's all good.
All good. Amanda? All good for you? Okay. All righty. Anything else? So anything else you needed from us, Terry, or?
Nope, we're all good. Thank you.
Us?
No, I'm all set. Thanks.
All right, everybody's all good today. That's our phrase. Okay.
Thanks, Terry.
And pardon me?
Just said thanks, Terry.
Yeah, thank you very much, Terry. I know Darby's getting ready for her presentation. Katie, I just wanted, just so we don't forget it, it's because it's at the bottom of our agenda. It says a budget adjustment and transfer. Did you, and I didn't want to hold you up, too long before or after Darby goes. So I didn't know if you wanted to move that up on the agenda, if there was anything you needed to discuss, or, I mean, it's just for information, but.
Yeah, no, it's not, it's just that we're having some computer issues. Specifically, I am having some computer issues and we'd like to move some budget lines to allow for a purchase.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, then it looks like we're ready for Darby. And I'm sorry you're having computer issues.
We all go through that one.
Hi, Darby. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Sorry to delay. I was toasting my sandwich, so thanks for let me bump down here. I'm here today to talk about the water quality strategy, which starts on your agenda packet, page 9. And this is updated by the Water Resources Council every 3 years. And so this is just the next iteration. And the purpose of the document is to guide policy and actions that both the county and the Water Resources Council and then other entities in the county take to protect and enhance our water resources. And so just a reminder of our three main watersheds in the county are Cayuga Lake, as we all are quite familiar with, and its many tributaries, but also Owasco Lake watershed is mainly in the town of Groton and the village of Groton. And then in the southern part of the town or the county, the streams that flow into the Susquehanna River watershed and then onto Chesapeake Bay. So it's this interesting, the water quality strategy is specifically on Tompkins County, but it addresses our water resources across all those watershed boundaries. And so the document details more on these surface waters, but then also talks about our groundwater resources, has some details on wetlands and riparian buffers, and then it details the policies and plans that are available across these different watersheds. And so from those other plans, we pull our own actions for the Water Resources Council. What do we plan to do, getting ideas from those other plans? And so many of the actions in this next iteration of the water quality strategy are from the harmful algal bloom strategy that we adopted earlier this year. And then there are other actions that we continue from year to year. So anything having to do with the TMDL, which we've seen the draft for, we're not sure when we'll see the finished product, finished document for the total maximum daily load for phosphorus for Cayuga Lake, but we'll be part of that process. And then the Water Resources Council also provides municipal trainings. We held a stream training out on 6 Mile Creek on Banks Road in the town of Caroline last month. And so those are the kinds of actions that we continuously do as part of that group. So that's all. I just wanted to be here. If you want to ask any questions about what that group has been up to or what the water quality strategy is, Amanda's been a very active participant in those meetings and appreciate having her support.
Thank you, Darby. You get extra points for telling us what page that is on the agenda, because you know, maybe you don't know, but I really like that. And I like people spelling out acronyms. Also, I like environmental things like this. So I really appreciate you giving us an update, because I think it's important, as you've probably heard me say before, so that we know more what's going on in the different liaison committees, the different boards. You're doing so much work out there. And so this is really great to get this report. I'll open it up for any questions or comments. It's 1:56, but still, I think we're all a little sleepy today, or you guys are doing such a good job that you're explaining things that we don't have any questions at all.
I think it's the latter, Annie.
That's true. That's what I'm leaning towards.
Because I'm wide awake.
We can't blame it on turkey or anything like that.
No tryptophan.
No.
It's just your department is so good at explaining things. All right. Well, I can't remember. I think I said this in the WRC meeting the other day, but Water Resources Council. But I want that'll is going to be one of my goals for next year, is to try and make sure that we have even more.
Oh, yeah. That's for something today. Thank you.
That was Bill. People or the different groups, communication back and forth, so we know what the groups are doing, they know what we're doing, and so figure out how we can support, each other more.
For sure.
So
And definitely, if there's something that you see in the water quality strategy that you say, hey, we'd love to hear an update on that, we can make that happen.
So I guess one question, we were going to talk about it later in our goals, but was because that was one of our goals of tracking that Amanda had asked us about, like tracking the Owasco Lake plans that went to the DEC. I believe they went to the DEC where we were waiting for approval. So has there Been any movement in that and them approving their plans?
No, I do keep track of any of their monthly reports from the water or the Owasco Lake Management Council, and all I've seen is that at some point within the last month or two, the state formed a committee to review the plan, the watershed rules and regs that were sent to them months and months ago now. So I think the state's pretty slow on a response to those watershed rules and regs. So we'll keep abreast of what's happening there. And I know there seems like a lot of different things going on in Owasco Lake with their 9-element plan as well. So I've been tuning into those meetings, and I think Liz Cameron from the health department has been as well.
And I think of course, we are concerned about their watershed, but if, please correct me, but I think part of the reason why we were watching that so closely is because if we're hoping to develop plans for the Cayuga Lake watershed. So
Correct,
it would be nice to find out how the state responds to their plan.
Yep. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, I will add that my in-laws have a camp on Owasco Lake, and there was a report on the HABs, and the HABs in Owasco Lake this year were just the worst that anybody there remembers. And their family camp still gets their drinking water from the lake. So cousin-in-law called me and said, "Hey, I canoed out far onto the water to try and find a place to go swimming, and I was like, because there was all this green stuff, and I was like, no, you actually need to leave camp." I'm like, you can't drink the water, and you have a dog who could jump into the water. I'm like, no, you have to leave camp. So she took a little while, but I talked her into leaving camp. And so it's pretty scary, pretty scary when you think about, I don't know how many people still get drinking water from that lake, or do people still get drinking water, do you know, from Cayuga Lake?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yes.
Deborah's got her hand up.
Yeah, I
and
just
it's-
wanted to bring to everyone's attention that Bill Troy doesn't have audio, and I don't know who can help him with that, or if he just needs to jump off and get back on. But to answer
Oh,
your
that was in the
question,
chat.
I do have now. Thank you.
okay.
Okay.
In answer to your question, Annie, yeah, I think the city of Auburn gets its drinking water from Owasco Lake.
Right, but they have a whole filtration system.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the people who have their own private wells or pulling water from the lakes. And as if Liz Cameron would hear, she would say you're not supposed to do that, but many people still do. Or the beach wells that I know I'm familiar with on Cayuga Lake, it's not really groundwater. It's this surface water, groundwater. Under the influence of surface water. So it's not filtered the way it should be. So yeah, it's the health department can answer lots of questions about those types of wells, but yeah, the problem is, even if you draw the HABs water into your system, it could really contaminate it too with possible toxins. So bad news.
So it's not allowed, so they really shouldn't be doing it in Cayuga Lake? Okay, so
yeah,
it's not
I think
allowed
in
by the health
Owasco Lake
department?
either. I think,
Okay.
I think if they called the health department, they would find out they're not supposed to have that connection.
Good to know, because that's
Yeah.
good leverage for me. I've been trying to get them to do a
There you
proper
go.
well. So that's, I actually, a few years back, we got a proper septic, so I'm gonna work on the water next. Okay, great. Deborah, was there anything else?
No, sorry.
Okay, any other questions or anecdotes of other family-in-law lakes that anybody want to share? Because we're a couple minutes ahead. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you. And I forgot to say this to Terry, so please wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Great.
If I don't see
Thanks.
you. Thank you for your
Thanks, you
report.
Thanks.
And so Katie, I think that's all. I mean, you can certainly stay, but I think we're all set, right?
Great.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody have a nice Thanksgiving.
Okay, now we're up to Barbara Ekstrom, and the Director of a Recycling and Materials Management Department, who has several things to discuss with us today and some updates. So Barbara.
Hi, it's good to
be
be here.
Oh, we have Nancy here too, Nancy Webster.
Yep,
So
it's
great.
good to be here, and we're going to give you our quarterly update on some of the items that you're interested in. As you know, we did manage to include brief summaries in your packet. So if you hadn't had a chance to look at those yet, take a look at them after the meeting, because these are going to carry over into next year. So I think I've got the right order, but we will start with reusable bags. Recall that the Peak Committee was the leaders in moving forward with a plan for the 5-cent bag law. And we have been finally receiving money for buying reusable bags. We actually did purchase the recyclable bags. Nancy can remind you more about what they are. And we're moving full steam ahead. We figured out a plan for our food scrap and public space recycling driver to also drop off bags. So it worked out. He had a little time and it worked out well. And I wanted to turn this over to Nancy, who's our waste reduction and recycling specialist that deals with waste reduction projects. And as you can see, she's still in Halloween mode.
Pumpkins roll in for a little while longer. Yeah, still seasonal.
Every time I see that, I laugh.
We need a laugh, right? Yeah, thank you. So we've been getting the 5 cents, which gets charged from paper bags that people are getting at the grocery store. And New York State requires that we use them. We use those funds to buy reusable bags for low income people. So we've partnered with a lot of different organizations throughout the county. We have a lot more in the pipeline too, working with, the Ithaca Free Clinic, Salvation Army, Food Net Meals on Wheels, a couple community centers, a whole bunch of food pantries, things like that. So places where people are already going to receive other services, agencies that are seeing people in person. And so far, everybody's been really grateful and really happy to work with us. And it's been a really a pretty easy program in a lot of ways, very useful, but a lot of moving parts, of course. So we're giving out right now, we have the Chico Bag Vita, which is 100% recycled content. So it adheres to our county EPP policy. We're walking the walk, right? They're high quality bags, so we're not just putting junk out there. And we're switching up the colors. There's no branding or anything. So it's not a big fluorescent, like, hi, I'm low income, I'm getting services, to be sensitive and mindful of folks. And I know you specifically had asked about a flat bottomed bag. I have it on the radar. We have the bid process because we are purchasing, it was almost $40,000 of bags this time. We'll have another 30,000 pretty soon. But I have a few in mind, so I did not forget about you. Don't worry.
And I also think, Nancy, you've done a wonderful job in your ability to communicate with lots of organizations. Now, for the committee, don't forget that if you know of any that you're interested in, please just send them over to Nancy. Next year, when we give our quarterly report, we will give you an update of all the locations that we are pursuing with the bags, because we're growing those. And there'll be a transfer request that comes to the next F&I meeting. I guess I have to go to the F&I committee for action items, and that'll happen in December. Anything else you wanted to add or any questions on that item?
Any questions?
I'm
from members?
thrilled with how smooth the process has been. And I will tell you that our food scrap driver, who used to work for Challenge, has gotten to know some of the places and people. He's really friendly, and he really feels good about this as well. So
Well, I wanted to just say in reference to your pumpkin, I like your fall pumpkin background there, Nancy. And I know a lot of people in this area, in town of Ulysses, they have these different forums and they're making sure a lot of the pumpkins go to farms where people have animals because animals like pumpkins. And it might sound weird, but cats and dogs actually will eat pumpkins.
And lions and tigers too.
Lions and tigers. What?
Yeah.
Well, I won't ask about bears because I don't want to.
No bears.
No bears. But yeah, I had sick kittens for a while, and we gave them pumpkin puree. We made pumpkin puree for them. Let's see. So
Okay.
and thank you for. Oh, there's a cat on cue and Deborah's screen there.
Dot likes pumpkin
that
as well.
looks like Dot. So thank you, Nancy, for remembering about the flat bottom bags. And I know I have to get back to you. It's on my to-do list here. So thank you for helping me figure out how to get some bags for my area.
We
Okay,
have
ready to
we
move
have a
on to
few
the
other
next?
we have a few other reports. So environmentally preferred procurement and projects that we've been doing as part of the legislation that you passed, the policies. Let me just give you an overall understanding of where I think we're at. This year has been the first year of this team. We have a number of players, and we're happy to report that we have everyone now that needed to join the team, including Terry Carroll, including the new folks from finance regarding purchasing. James Fabian has joined us, and others. Of course, Amanda's been on that committee, Greg Potter, myself, as well as and Nancy Webster has been taking the lead. Jeremy's on it. But I think that, I expected that we would, I think we're good. I mean, I would grade us as a B or a B plus. I think, there's a lot more work to do. Now we're going to have the full team, and I see some progress being made. Nancy can give you some details, but I will want to talk briefly about the water filling stations. Ann and I were both at the F&I meeting, and I think there's definitely more work to be done. And we have a schedule lined up for next year. And I think next year will be the service contracts as well as cleaning products. And then we move into more items. So Nance, why don't we have you give a brief report on this one as well?
Sure, yeah. It's packet page 39 if you want to read the outline in more detail. But yes, we have our team and we're meeting about every month. We're adjusting a little bit for the holidays, but it's been really nice to have the interdepartmental aspect going, so we get everybody's perspective. We first looked at office supplies, and a couple departments tested some out. And so now finance is working on creating kind of a shopping list or a market basket that'll make it easier for departments to make sure they're looking at environmentally preferred products when they're purchasing. So they are working on that, and there's a bid. They expect that to be done in the first quarter of 2022. And then we're working on cleaning products. So working mainly with the new cleaning supervisor in facilities to look at what they're using that already has some sort of environmental certification, whether it's Green Seal or EPA or whatever. And then also looking at the things that they are not currently purchasing in that manner. Also looking at the practices, right? There's some products where maybe it works better if it sits on the surface longer, or maybe it's really concentrated and you only need to use a tiny bit of it, things like that. But so everything kind of takes a little research. And so I'm working one-on-one with some folks as well as working in the whole group together. And yeah, as Barb said, we're going to move forward with those aspects in 2022, as well as looking at the surplus equipment policy and the counter reuse policy.
Right. Yeah, that's a big deal and exciting, right?
Yeah. So those are things that the county has on the books for a long time, but they kind of need to be reinvigorated. And so since we have this team, it seems like a good avenue for that.
Yes, Amanda had brought this up a couple of months ago, and we just needed to put it on the calendar. And it's actually a very exciting project. So I'm excited about that. Anything else, Nance, on the EPP before I talk
Well, I
about?
think Amanda has her hand up. So do you want to chime in first,
Yeah,
Amanda?
please.
Well, I just want to say that you get more than a B+. I think I think it's at least an A-.
All right,
an
all
A.
right. Maybe I'm tough on us.
I mean, you all have been doing a lot, and there's so much else going on. And this is, it's a difficult process of, talking to department heads and finding out what people are actually doing, and then finding out, what kind of actual changes can be made. And yeah, I mean, we didn't have the official purchasing person from finance for a while. And so I think,
Thank you. Well, we're a good
it's a slow
team.
process, but
I also think we thank you, Amanda, and we didn't mention Greg and what Greg's been contributing. Nance, maybe you want to make mention of that as well.
Yeah, Greg Potter from ITS has been really helpful. ITS deals with, so much equipment throughout the whole county, and probably communicates with each department more than any of us even. And so they've been really great at participating and looking at, specifically, we're looking at like what is it called? The scanner and copier. Yeah, thank you. Scanner and copiers, and, doing some best value purchasing and making sure that's done in an efficient way. So they've really hit the ground running.
Yeah, I think Nancy has done A+ work, and I guess maybe I'll change my mind, but I will tell you what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the end of next year being a year where not only did we get to the products that are fairly typical, but there's also products that are used by the highway department in particular, and some other departments that have, there's a new state bid. We were so happy to listen to the New York State Association of Reducers and Recycling and Reusers conference, where we learned that so much is going to happen with EPP products on a state level, and that there's also going to be a big expansion of the state bid list for these products. So that's going to help us a lot as we
good.
So that's really good news. The only other thing I wanted to mention is the F&I committee had a goal that Dave McKenna is aware of and Ann Corman is aware of, to inventory. Their project was to inventory what type of systems we have in place for people to be able to use their water bottles that were given out at the picnic, to not use the single use bottles and to move forward. There was a survey that actually went out, but it didn't really go through the EPP team's hands. And I am interested in seeing a lot more work happen about these filling stations. And because I don't think that was the charge there, but I would like this committee to consider this item as part of an environmental project for next year, that we could look at the implications of the cost of bringing in water bottles for departments that are currently using them. There are some departments that have water fountains where you can't really use your water bottle. And there's also greenhouse gas emissions that should be looked at as part of this plan for the long run. And I would be, Nance and I talked about this, we would be very happy to take this on for next year to complete the work that in my mind needs to be done when it comes to life cycle analysis.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Barb. Because what I was thinking too is I had written that down earlier today, that I would like to consider that as one of our goals for peak for
Great.
next year, is to look at the filtered water, work towards filtered water dispensers is what is in my head, the
Yep.
name for them, but if that
Yep.
could not be the correct name, but it, to me, it embodied, you know, we're trying to give our employees some better water versus what you get out of the tap. So we get these different dispensers, and some are filtered water, others are bottled water. And so for me, the biggest thing in looking at that was having to do with making sure that people could fill their water bottles. And as you and I were talking before about this, Barbara, the water bottles that Tompkins County, that we gave out to our employees at the picnic, they don't fit in most of the water.
Yep.
Even if they kind of look like a water dispenser, they're made for cups. And then you have all these cups next to them and everything. So we really, I'm thinking I would like to bring this as a peak goal for next year versus F&I, because they didn't understand it, because that's not really what they were looking for. So
It was a
if
different
you're willing
charge.
to be, so if you're willing to be in charge of that, and I'll put
Yeah,
that as
I
a
would,
peak
I
goal,
would be
think-
honored, and I think
Yep.
that our EPP team would join, and I'm sure that there could be a great partnership with Terry Carroll in calculating the emission options, cost analysis. Nancy Webster has knowledge about the types of filtration, the water cooling filtration, whatever they're called. And then we can bring it to EPP, and that way, and then we might actually wind up doing a slightly different survey. So that would be lovely. We would love to do that.
And Amanda, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think if Barb and Nancy, if you want to head that up, that's awesome. And, have Peak be the group sort of, spurring it on, that's great. I think with all of this EPP stuff, I think it's important to remember that, the group or this legislature might make decisions or policies, but getting that out to all the staff and all the departments is really difficult. And I think there's even some legislators who don't even remember that we passed that resolution that we're not supposed to buy, the county is not supposed to buy disposable water bottles. And there's folks that don't even know that or remember that.
Amanda, I think that your point is super right. And I think what we'll do, since Jeremy Betterly, my communications coordinator, has just recently joined the group, we'll have him do a communications plan that the EPP team can take a look at. We'll even bring it to Peak first quarter. And then that way, it's not just one person's responsibility, but he will drive it. He can be our leader for how we communicate. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, especially with new legislators coming on,
that's a great point.
They need to know that this is our policy and this is something we're working towards. And,
I think new staff, there's a lot of new staff too.
Right.
So we'll make a note of that. Thank you for bringing that up. And I will say that when we made this resolution and we chose to have a legislator on this group and the other members, the group can take another look at its membership to make sure it's complete as it relates to the surplus policy that we'll work on. But I'm really, the part of this that's an A is the fact that we brought a team together here, and we kept it moving, we kept it growing. And, I was more behind the scenes, and Nancy really had the experience of becoming a leader of a cross-functional team in county government. And I think it's a really good thing.
And Amanda, thank you for your work on this committee. Deborah, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I was glad that Barb mentioned the fact that we have so many new employees. I can't remember if it was at a BCP meeting or at a ledge meeting, but last week Ruby reported that almost a quarter of our current staff has been hired within the last year.
Wow.
So yeah, I think it's probably a really good idea if we do some kind of special outreach about this. So thanks for mentioning that, Barbara.
Okay, anything else before, because I think you have some other topics.
Oh.
Go ahead, Barb. And thank you very much, Nancy, for all your work on this.
Absolutely. So, yeah, this feels good to be able to bring items that aren't necessarily for action to get feedback as more things move forward. And the next two items are about state level decisions and bans that will impact our community in a very good way. I feel somewhat impatient sometimes because I think it goes a little slower than I'd like, but the styrofoam ban is a great relief that we will be seeing a reduction. And we've been seeing it over the last year or two or three in the use of styrofoam for a number of things. We gave you details about this law, and we expect to hear more from the state as to how it's going, and we'll continue to include this in our quarterly report. Nance, is there anything you wanted to make special mention of with this update?
Yeah, so it's on page 40 if you want to see the details. When we had touched on it at a previous meeting, it was probably months and months ago at this point. I know somebody had asked about, can an organization like a chicken barbecue still use styrofoam? And so I think that's answered in here. But basically the sale and the distribution of styrofoam packaging, like the takeout containers and peanuts, will not be allowed in New York State after January 1st. And so if somewhere like a food pantry or community meal or something, if they want to continue to use styrofoam, they have to apply to New York State DEC for a waiver in order to be able to do that. I imagine there will be some that are using up their styrofoam and then switching to some other option. And we have the Rebusiness Partners program. So we're already working with a couple places, and I imagine we'll see more of that as it takes effect.
We'll also be doing another communication plan. We're going to start, Jeremy's already planning to do social media and other outreach about this ban. A lot of communication has already happened between the DEC and the businesses, but we'll probably do more with our listservs. We'll do more through the chamber, and we'll approach both the businesses and the residents as well. And that will be ongoing, and there'll be a formal communication plan developed for next year as well. So these are all works in progress. I mean, they never really, we keep monitoring how things are going. And of course, if you have any thoughts, let me know if you want to see something different or more, but you'll be hearing more about it by the end of the first quarter of next year.
I would just add real quick that because we have the Rebusiness program, we have, almost 300 businesses that have already participated in that over the last decade. And so I think we have a lot less businesses that are utilizing styrofoam at this point. So it'll probably be easier on our county than it is on some other counties. But I think it's a good baseline for us.
I also think the communication plan with residents is important, because if they happen to see restaurants that are using it, they can always let us know. So that will be great. So we're looking forward to that. The other thing is, of course, the longstanding legislation about the food donation and food scraps recycling law, which we've provided information in the past, but where we're at now is this for the largest generators, 104 ton or more in the community. This is going to kick in. There's roughly a dozen of these in the community: Cornell, Ithaca College, and some large grocery stores, and a few, I think there's 1 or 2 restaurants. But the point we're at right now is there's waivers being considered by the DEC. And I will know by the middle of December. They're taking forever, but I will know by the middle of December what the results of that are. That's another thing that we can let people know about through Business Partners, through our communication plan, and mostly directly with any businesses that aren't currently doing that. I'm anxious to hear about what happens with Tops, actually, because I know Tops has not been a Business Partners business. And I also know that they have work to do here. So we'll see what happens. Nancy, anything else you want to point out with this one?
I think you pretty much touched it. It does, part of the requirement is not just food scraps recycling, but it's also
That's right.
Donating edible food. And
That's very
again,
important.
we have pretty robust systems already in our county, but there's more and more to be done. I think we're hoping there's going to be some more funding coming through also. So yeah, we'll keep you
That's
updated.
good. And I do know in working with Megan at Friendship Donation and also with the food bank, that they've taken care of everything as it applies to these particular entities. I am a little impatient though. And I think that when you look at Vermont and you look at Massachusetts and some other states, they have really moved ahead with a couple of additional things. They are including, 52 ton per year. They are doing more with some legislation. I'm going to be working with some key people in the state, and I feel optimistic that they can move these things along. But I think that, later in the year, toward the last quarter, we can look at where they're going and what we would like to do on a local level, because we can do, and there's a precedent in New York State for a local law if we want to.
Thank you. Barb and Nancy, I'm going to open it up to see if any legislators, I see Deborah has her hand up, and if any legislators or anybody in the meeting has any questions about this one and the one that you just did on the styrofoam ban. Deborah?
Yeah, thanks, Annie. This is all really good news. I understand why you're impatient, Barb. I'm curious to know why a large organization that's generating that kind of food waste can qualify for a waiver at all. I mean, what are the standards?
So
remember, Nance?
The only information they've given us is that large generators can petition the department for a 1-year waiver due to undue hardship. So it's very vague.
Actually, and now you're reminding me, if they don't have a facility that has the capacity within 25 miles, which I believe everyone locally does. But rest assured that I'm going to be sending an email to the state. I have a great contact there about food scraps. I've been helping with the climate smart waste reduction reviews for climate smart communities. And so he owes me a favor and he's very nice. So I'm going to find out more about what's going on. I will talk with the head person as well. We'll get to the bottom of this, but yeah, it's like, the way I feel is there's so many businesses in our community, and I've lost track, Nancy, about how many are doing the food scrap collection, but there's at least 100, 150, and they're far smaller. So yeah, it's time, it's overdue.
Yeah, I think one of the other aspects of quote unquote hardship could also be haulers. if you have a facility that's within 25 miles, but you don't have a hauler, or you only have one, and then it becomes cost prohibitive.
And drivers of anything are in short supply right now.
Actually, the real goal we have for next year is to work with smaller haulers. I mean, I have a document that I want to share that I put together about, it's like a 5 or 7 page hopes and dreams document about what I'd like to see happen with food scrap reduction and recycling in this community. And we are going to be doing work. We're already, there's a potential vendor about doing smaller scale vermiculture, and they are hooked up with another collector. And so there's a lot of activity that we're going to put into making this possible and meeting like more of these places, including some other initiatives for residents. So stay tuned for next year. I wanted to finish by saying that we are actively working yet again on our solid waste management diversion plan for the state and for the community. And it will be, we've got some work we need Barton and Judas to help us with on some fancier stuff and some other things. And we'll be working with the county as well on greenhouse gas emissions. But we're looking at an overall plan that happens every 10 or 20 years. And we're going to be doing that next year. And I wanted this committee to be aware of it because there's such a, it's got a really strong environmental component. And I want to work with you as we develop that in, next year. So just want to let you know.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I had one. I don't see anybody else with their hand up, but so in reading these plans for the food scraps and the styrofoam, I'm trying to be optimistic, but for me, I just see so many holes in these programs, and I wanted them to be so much bigger. Maybe that was
that's what I want too.
But just looking at the styrofoam of, okay, if you're this or this, you don't have to do it, and just thinking about all those big community meals, and and if the annual income is under 500,000 per location, or you don't operate 10 or more locations, or you're not, I'm just thinking of all these different loopholes that, and so, but when this takes effect, well, I guess my question was, do you have any sense at this point that this is just a starting point, and that they would be open at the state to passing things that are more inclusive?
Well, what they're dealing with right now, and you can certainly talk to Anna Kelles, but what they're dealing with now are all the rebels, and they're starting. But the truth is, let's see what happens. Maybe we want to include in our solid waste plan that we're going to do something more involved on a local basis with this. What's nice is when you have a state ban, it doesn't preclude a local municipality from taking further steps. It's much harder for a local municipality to take those steps if there isn't a state ban. And I just listened to the National Recycling Conference online as well. And there's so much movement right now. I've never seen it before in terms of programs with respect to all of the things we've been waiting for: expanded producer responsibility, bans, and much more. That there's it's going to take a while for the federal government, but we shouldn't necessarily in our plan, we can decide that we want to do more. So let's keep that in mind as we watch what goes on.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say from benchmarking other programs in other states, often they do start off, just kind of getting people's feet wet, and then they can hone it in, build the system first.
We can be whatever we want to be.
Okay, and we could look at that as a possible goal for next year too.
Well, I mean, the solid waste management plan is the goal. To develop a solid waste management plan that maximizes waste reduction and minimizes greenhouse gas emissions. That's the overarching goal that we're going to be working toward. All these other little things are all part of it. And that's going to be it's no different than when planning has their plans, and we include many things in it. And what we'll figure out is how we need to work together in terms of moving it forward. Don't forget, there's a draft plan, there's comment by legislators as well as the public. We've already submitted like a draft, very, very raw draft to the DEC a couple of years ago. We got some more comments, but we're going to really start this process anew because the new legislation that was passed includes an update to how to do the local municipality solid waste management minimization plans. So it's going to be a big project. And, this is the committee I'm hoping we can work with to have the most impact.
Thank you, Barb. Deborah, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Annie, back to your concern about those loopholes. I remember, I guess it was in 2019 when we started talking about doing a styrofoam ban in the county, and we researched how that process had worked in other counties in New York State. And there was always tremendous pushback from the affected businesses because based on their concerns for cost, I think that we would not have a statewide ban at all if we hadn't included these loopholes that would address people's concerns about if I'm too small and it's going to be too expensive, this is going to ruin my business. But I do think that because we now have a statewide ban, there will be more options for alternative packaging materials that would be preferable to styrofoam, and that's going to eventually make it easier and less expensive to broaden the scope of the styrofoam ban.
And that's exactly what we're talking about with EPR. What is going on in New York State right now on a very, very high level is the changes in packaging that are going to be taking place in this state in a big way. And I'm on that New York State EPR committee. There's a lot that's going to happen, Deborah, and I'm really excited about it. Because when you look back on, my career, 34 years ago, it was ridiculous what was going in the landfill. And we're really, I can see a lot of progress being made.
We just need to be a little bit patient.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
I've been pretty patient, yeah.
I know, it's foreign to our nature.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have a 3:00 meeting, and I think there's only one item left that's been brought to you for information.
So let me put that, let's see. Well, there's a resolution urging New York State to increase the recycling and so maybe we can do that resolution first. And then you said there's an information item.
No. I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing.
The resolution, yeah. So let's get that on the floor. So I'm gonna read the whole name. Resolution urging New York State Legislature to increase recycling and reduce municipal waste management costs by expanding the New York State Returnable Container Act. So can someone move that? Deborah, seconded by Amanda. So Barb, would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, this also went to the F&I committee that was they had requested that I bring this forward. We did do this a few years ago as a legislature, and this resolution was written by the New York State Association of Reducers and Recyclers, as well as NISAC. And we're bringing this forward because it's clear there's movement, there's an opportunity for glass bottles to be added, and it's happening. It's very active, and we've gotten confirmation from the governor's office as well as other committees. So we want to make sure that we send that message and before the end of the year.
Okay, great. Any questions or, oh, Amanda, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I think this is great, obviously. I just think that the resolution should also say in the first resolved on recommendation of Facilities and Infrastructure Committee and Peak Committee. It doesn't note us as well. So if we're going to vote on it.
Yep. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. So if we, yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering. So facilities passed it, and then that's a good point, Amanda. So if we put that in there. So first, let's, on
Point of
recommendation.
clarification. I was told this whole issue of, serving two committees. Kathy Covert told me that I could not bring anything to this committee to take action, but you can do it on, if you want to, but I'm not able to do that because I can only serve one committee apparently.
So even an action item of this resolution is what you're saying.
Well, but I think that if Amanda wants to move that and somebody wants to second it, I don't think Kathy Covert would disallow it.
I don't think that affects Amanda's suggestion at this juncture. It should just say on recommendation of the Facilities and Infrastructure and Planning, Energy and Environmental Quality Committees.
Great.
But can we, I think, so can we pass a resolution like this?
Yeah, we
just
two
amend
committees.
it.
Yeah, we have two committees
Right.
pass resolutions all the time.
Yeah.
But I think, well, so for two committees to pass the same thing.
Well, it would be
Amanda,
slightly
you're saying
different
that-
as it's passed by us, Annie. Kathy's
Mhm.
here. She will
Oh, hi,
declare
Kathy.
from on high.
I just
Let me
want to
just
make sure.
Yeah, let me just clarify that the department Barbara Ekstrom represents reports to the Facility and Infrastructure Committee. That's her program committee. This committee is and can take action on this resolution as well. And we would add a recommendation of the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee and the Planning, Energy and Environmental Quality Committee before it goes to the legislature.
Yeah.
Okay, and is that and would you like us, does that make sense, right, that we're changing the wording here? Well, we would have to add peak for us to pass it because otherwise it's, okay, so it's okay with the amendment that Amanda suggested?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and that is a friendly change to me I'm
And to
sorry, I wasn't the
me.
one that it was Deborah and Amanda, right?
Right.
Okay, and it's friendly to both of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any other discussion before we vote on this? I'll just say thank you, Kathy, for helping make this clearer. So we'll vote on this. Dave?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that passes unanimously. Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Barb and Nancy, for coming today. We really appreciate all you do and for coming to fill us in on a lot of stuff that has been happening and you guys
Good
have
to
been
see
doing.
you
So
all. Have a great holiday.
thank you. Have
You
a
too.
good
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're next down to committee members' reports and a review of our yearly goals. Are there any committee member reports? Okay. As I mentioned when Darby was here, I don't know if I said it before in this committee, but I've been going to some of the liaison committees that report to Peak. And I'll keep working on that over the next couple of months, is to go to them and to try and to let them know at the committees, and then work with the chairs and vice chairs of those committees to make sure that they come and give us reports. So I part of my what I'm wanting for this year, and I guess maybe that would make that a goal for next year too, so that we have more communication back and forth, and they understand their charge, and you know, some there might be something we ask them to do specifically, or they need help with something that they're doing, and so they understand their charge too. They also have had, you know, in the last couple of years, a lot of turnover, so it'd be probably helpful for them too. So we'll go on to the goals. I don't see that they're printed in the agendas unless I missed it. So I'll go over. I have them right here.
It's in your email from November 16th, Annie. They're all listed.
Right. That's what I'm looking at. Okay. So so the first one, these are our goals where we're looking at for 2021. And I know it's, so already November, I guess you could say. And then this committee keeps going through December and January. But I just wanted to just give a review, as I see other committees are doing at this time of year, seeing how we're doing. So number one was to develop an updated Tompkins County forest policy regarding county-owned forested lands in the towns of Caroline and Danby. And that goal was suggested by Dan Klein. And I think that goal is achieved. Okay, and you guys chime in if there's anything you want to say on any of these. Number two was harmful algal blooms, and we didn't have a specific action in there, but we have had a report on there. Anything else? So I think that one's achieved. Amanda, was there anything else on that I'm missing?
No, but I've been at 2 meetings last week where Nate Lauer from the Community Science Institute gave a report on, they're the ones who do the testing of samples that come in, and he gave an update on, you know, what they saw over the whole year. So I'm sure one was at the Water Resources Council, the other was at the IO. So if you're interested in seeing their report, I'm sure one of them was recorded, and you know, you could reach out and get that. So if you're interested, that's available.
And HABs are worse than ever.
Yeah, so I did attend the last WRC committee, and I saw that, and it was astounding. Yeah, they're getting worse than usual, and different times of the year. Like, as I mentioned before, when my cousin-in-law, this was like early September, about the extensive HABs in Owasco Lake. And I looked online and I was like, oh, there's like 7. There's like 7 reports, just leave. And I thought, oh, in a couple of weeks, it's getting colder. We're not going to have to worry about HABs. And that's what it usually happens. And October, so seeing from that report, October was just absolutely, was like some of the most, it was the worst for the size and the location, if I'm remembering this correctly, in October. And that was because of some they're relating it to, it was right after some rain events that we had. So that's really unusual for that time of year.
Are they going to be like fleas? Seriously, you know how, but seriously, you know how everybody says, well, during the winter, the flea problem will go away because they'll freeze. And yet with the warming, with the warming winters we've been having, it hasn't gotten cold enough for them to ever really go away. Are HABs going to be like that? Oy,
Yeah, I think probably. Yeah, they're just getting worse, really.
okay.
Okay, so yeah, worse habs, fleas and ticks. Thanks for bringing up the fleas and ticks. And yes,
Oh, anytime.
it is. Yeah. Let's see. Overall, I just wanted to say too, looking at our goals and with Amanda bringing that up, that's a good point that there was a report on that. I don't necessarily, I like the way that the group has gone, or this committee has gone so far this year. I don't think we need to inundate it with tons of reports. I think what might, they've already reported out to two different committees that you know of, Amanda. But what might be helpful once we get even better communication is maybe they'll tell us ahead of time so peak members know this is something that for those that might be interested could go. I just happen to tune into that one and go, oh yeah, this is the information that I've been wanting to hear. So we'll work on that aspect, because I don't think we need to not just fill up. Well, I'll try and say it. I'll try and say it nicely. If we end early, we end early. I'll move for the rest of this year. And if I continue next year, don't want to just bring in people to repeat presentations that they've made several other places. Okay, what are we on? Number 3, track greenhouse gas emissions. And Deborah Dawson had this as suggested this one. And so let's see, we have Terry, we have now a sustainability, chief sustainability officer. So who's working on that for us.
We also had the updated greenhouse gas emissions study that I think that Darby presented. I can't remember who presented that.
Right. And I was trying to remember if that was this year, but yeah, that was during this year, right?
Yeah, I think so. 2019 and 2020 are kind of running together. I don't know why.
Yeah, pandemic seems like 1 year, but yet 20.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And number 4, monitor the New York State response to proposed Owasco Lake watershed rules, which is not easy for me to say. And so we talked about that. Anything else? Anybody want to say on that one? Okay.
I think the IO is taking care of that for us pretty much, isn't it, Amanda?
Well, I mean, I think like Darby said, there's nothing happening.
Right.
So I think when eventually something comes out, all those water groups are going to be paying close attention, and we'll hear about it, and we can, once the, Water Resources Council, which is our advisory board, once they get their hands on it, I'm sure they would be happy to give us a report or talk more about it. But yeah, it could be a while.
Yeah. If it's anything like the TMDL for Cayuga Lake, we're going to be waiting into the next century.
And hopefully this will be a little bit better news than the TMDL report.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Oh,
5.
Number 5. I'm looking at a different screen, which is much further away. So my glasses. Support planning of an energy summit to be held in 2022. The summit is being planned through the Climate and Sustainability Energy Advisory Board. Deborah and I put this one on here. And that is kind of, it's kind of like on pause. It's kind of like, I think we reached the thing of like, is that the next thing to do? Were we going to wait till we could hold it in person? What was the focus going to be? I was in on some of those meetings where we couldn't really come to the focus would, we tried to narrow it down, and then the focus kind of shifted. Deborah, what would you say?
Well,
How we're
I haven't gone for the last couple of months, and I don't know if Martha is actually here in person or just her picture. But it was my recollection that it kind of got hijacked is the wrong word, because that suggests that we weren't willing participants. But Luis Aguirre Torres has this plan to push for decarbonizing all the buildings in the city and doing the retrofitting on the existing buildings. And I think the last I heard, the Energy Summit was going to be focused on that initiative. So I'll let Martha, you've been to the most recent meetings, Martha. So what's going on?
Yeah, it really was. It was funny. We just couldn't land on a strategy or a focus, and not for lack of trying. And sort of the housing.
We had too many options.
Kind of, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
The Housing Summit was the model that a lot of us had in our heads, but this just didn't. There are just so many different directions to go in, and kind of everybody had a champion for one particular direction or another. So it didn't. People wanted to put efforts into something that would make a difference, and it was hard to land on an actual topic that everybody agreed would be the right next step. Should it be about direct action and what individuals can do on their own? Should it be about lobbying? Should it be about building?
Financing?
Finance or transportation, kind of, or what? And the answer was yes, all of the above, which meant you really couldn't come up with a summit. But then soon after, somewhere in the middle of that, Luis got involved and came and was talking, we learned what they're doing at the Green New Deal. And people felt, okay, that's really a big thing. That effort is a big deal, needs support and kind of community work to help move that along. And people are basically kind of interested in following that. So I think, Terry has been in many of the meetings. So planning continues to be kind of tracking the conversation, which is great. But the idea of an actual summit as the housing summit is really off the table. So if the planning Department of Planning Sustainability were to look at kind of the energy strategy, if there's a modification to that, it might just be something about engagement in the community, support for community efforts. I don't have something in my head that's planned, but that would, in lieu of a conference kind of day or day and a half long conference, the idea is would be to support the kind of efforts that that are going on in the community. Pretty vague, but so it's not that nothing happened, it's that it really, and that group does still meet every other week. So there's definitely still conversation going on.
Yeah, so I think at this point, I would see this as something, I would recommend for next year that we don't continue this goal, and then we would see if was something else that was coming up, or Case might have a specific goal. Does that sound about right? Okay.
Sounds good.
Well, Martha and Deborah too, but I know Martha, you have spent a lot of time trying to spearhead this, and I know it's taken a lot of conversations. So let's see, number 6, support initiatives towards a price on carbon at the New York State and or federal level. And Martha, we haven't really done anything on this. How are you feeling about this one? Because I know that sometimes we've had people come and present to us. And
this is an overlap with Tiger, actually. I think that Tiger's been more active on this front than PKO's. What do you think, Martha?
Well, we did have conversations earlier in the year with Miranda Phillips, who is part of the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act group, the Citizens Climate Lobby. I've continued to be in touch with her. I mean, we did have a meeting with Amanda Spellacy in Schumer's office and somebody in Schumer's office in Washington, whose name escapes me right now. Really trying to push it and saying, and the timeliness of the fact that if they don't pass something in this Congress, the European Union is putting a carbon fee on imports from any country that doesn't have, bless you, Dave, any country that doesn't have a price on carbon. That'll start January 2023. So if the United States doesn't take some kind of action, every export from here to the European Union is going to be
tariff.
Is going to be faced with a serious disadvantage. So I know a variety of people and groups were trying to get some kind of price on carbon into the Build Back Better bill. So we know how that's going. So it's not, I understand it's not in that reconciliation measure. So I don't know whether any other measures that are in that bill, if they get passed, I don't know if that would qualify for the European Union. Kind of doubt it. So it's really a federal thing. The state has got its own bill that it's working on, but I guess we didn't really get into that one. That's I can't remember the name of that one, but that one's trying to develop the resources to support the CLCPA. So that may have a better chance of passing.
So if I was to put a sound bite in this, because I'm just trying to think of two that Brittany trying to take minutes of this. So a sound bite might be that there wasn't really a heck of a lot going on for us to support.
Well,
unfortunately, right? Especially on a federal level.
We did pass, didn't we pass a resolution? We did pass a resolution supporting the EICDA,
whatever.
Act. And that was what we took to the meeting with Schumer's staff. So, there was an effort, to work with the national group at the federal level. And Schumer's is pretty much as high as you're going to get. I think that's, and here's the thing about peak and putting in for next year. Heard the conversation about shrinking the number of committees, whether that's peak and housing and economic development get put back together, or Tiger goes away, or both. It seems like somebody should track this kind of an issue. Energy and all the ramifications of that are really key to what we do in the future. And federal legislation, it really matters. State legislation matters, federal legislation matters. And I hope this legislature doesn't just kind of drop the ball. And, so I would, maybe if you think about a goal, especially if Tiger goes away, a goal that just says, track state and federal legislation.
Energy and environmental legislation,
and regulations. Regulations sometimes are as important too. Yeah, something like that.
Track and support state and federal. Well, how did you word that, Deborah? So track and support state and federal
legislation affecting energy, climate change, environmental issues, legislation and regulation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Regulations are important too. There was, the regional energy siting regulation is an important issue, for example, where once the law gets passed, there's a step of tracking the regulations as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Alrighty, get back to our agenda here. We already mentioned the last thing on the budget, which was for information only. Is there anything else, any other topics or announcements or anything else anybody want to discuss? Okay, great. I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and whatever you do. I know some people are just staying home and it's very quiet. So I want to, which is what I'm doing. So I know it's not like, still, we're not totally back to normal. Maybe some people are visiting their family, but in whatever thing that you do, and know that I'll be home watching the parade and the dog show as usual while I'm cooking. So anyway, have a great
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Stay well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.